Hello and welcome to Spill the Tea. True Stories, the place where real life is more fascinating than fiction. Sit back, pour yourself a cup of tea, and let's dive into the moments that stay with us forever. We're starting now. Alice stood frozen at the edge of a boundless field, drowning in thick wild grasses. A light breeze gently ruffled strands of her hair. High above, in the bottomless blue sky, the golden sun shone. The girl's gaze was fixed on the horizon line. There, barely discernible, a tiny dot appeared. It grew rapidly, taking on the shape of a human figure. Alice knew who it was, and her heart fluttered with anticipation. She had come here for this meeting. The dot grew larger, and now a running girl was visible. A smile lit up Alice's face. It was definitely her. Long, light brown hair, eyes sparkling with fun, generously scattered freckles, a slightly upturned nose, thin, long arms and legs. The girl was strikingly similar to Alice, like her own reflection. Next to her, Alice always felt unusually happy and peaceful. Their communication was silent. They only smiled at each other, held hands, laughed. They could race off somewhere together or freeze on some boulder, gazing into the surrounding world. Sometimes they just wandered through the surroundings. Alice understood clearly. These meetings only happened in dreams. Her friend didn't appear every day, but often enough, sometimes once a month, sometimes 3 times a week. Alice always waited for these dreams with impatience. They were different from ordinary dreams. They were strikingly real, full of life, and unlike fleeting night visions, they never faded from memory after waking. Alice didn't remember the beginning. It seemed her dream friend had always been with her. At first, they were both tiny tots. The girls grew up side by side, changing synchronously. Now they were 14, on the threshold of adulthood, not yet having parted with childhood. Tall, thin, with awkward teenage grace. The dreams broke off suddenly, as if mid-sentence. That's what happened now. A loud sound tore Alice from the world of dreams. She found herself in her bed, in her own bedroom. The culprit was the cat Whiskers, who had knocked a glass of pencils off the bedside table. That crash had woken her. Again. And when will she appear in a dream now? Not today, for sure, Alice thought with annoyance. She stroked the cat. He purred, pressing against her hand, and settled comfortably on the bedside table, as if promising to guard her sleep. Alice smiled, getting more comfortable. She needed to fall asleep quickly. She had to get up early tomorrow. The holidays were over. Lying in the dark, Alice pondered her unusual dreams. For a long time, she thought everyone had such dream friends. This nameless girl had become an integral part of her being, something taken for granted. But as she grew older, Alice realized her peers' dreams were different, bright, whimsical, but the characters in them constantly changed. No one had such a constant companion as she did. "You're lying, you fantasist," a spiteful Chloe once cut her off, and the others remained silent, not believing her. Since then, Alice stopped sharing this secret, even with her parents. She realized her dreams were special, rare, and it was hard for other people to believe in them. Parents. At the thought of them, Alice involuntarily smiled. She was incredibly lucky. The house was always full of love and understanding. Her mother and father were older than most of her friends' parents. Alice understood. She was a late, long-awaited child, surrounded by boundless love, perhaps even a little spoiled. The family lived comfortably. Alice had almost everything one could dream of: expensive toys, outfits, trips, entertainment. When it was time for school, even the strict gymnasium uniform turned into a work of art, thanks to the best seamstress in the city. Undoubtedly, her parents and all her extended family pampered their only daughter. She was the center of their world. But despite this, Alice didn't grow up capricious or arrogant. She had many friends. Her parents, with all their love, raised her strictly, accustomed her to independence, and demanded diligence in her studies, attendance at clubs, and obedience. But there was one dream her parents couldn't fulfill. Since she was 4, Alice had been asking for a little sister. She imagined sharing everything with her, teaching her, playing, walking. She wanted a close, kindred spirit nearby, like that girl from her dreams. She would have been happy with a brother, or even twins. But this dream remained unfulfilled. As she grew older, Alice realized her parents were no longer young, almost the same age as her friends' grandmothers. They had her late, and apparently, it wasn't easy. From films and books, she learned that sometimes children just don't come. It seemed they were lucky only once. Alice loved her parents immensely and was especially close to her mother. Their home was a stronghold of peace and understanding. She didn't remember serious punishments and always shared her innermost thoughts with them. And yet, one day she never told them about the girl from her dreams. She was afraid they would consider it a figment of her imagination, or worse, get worried and take her to psychologists. No, this part of her life had to remain hers alone. The grown-up Alice tried to find an explanation. At first, she thought it was the embodiment of her desire for a sister. Then she leaned towards the idea that she was seeing her second self, as they were so similar. And sometimes she fantasized about parallel worlds where a portal opened in her dreams. There were many versions. Alice wrapped herself tighter in the blanket, hugging her old plush bear. She was 14, but she wasn't ashamed to sleep with toys, finding comfort and peace in them. The cat Whiskers purring settled nearby, adding warmth. Her parents were still awake. Their muffled voices came from the living room. They often watched movies late or just talked. Alice cherished this harmony. By her age, she had already seen divorces and quarrels in her friends' families, and she was grateful for the peace in their home. Quiet voices of her parents came from the living room, mixing with music from a film. Alice listened. What were they talking about? Maybe summer plans? The end of the year was near. Holidays. They were surely deciding where to go. But soon she realized the conversation wasn't about the sea or vacation. "She's still a child," her mother insisted, which was unusual, as they rarely argued. "What child? She's a teenager now," her father objected. "All the worse. Growing up is hard enough, we shouldn't traumatize her now." "But she'll find out anyway," he insisted. "They found us. They're looking for a meeting. It's better she hears the truth from us than from strangers. We'll leave. You're being transferred to Moscow. This is our chance. Speed up the transfer," her mother countered. "Eleanor, you can't run from the truth, especially now when they're so close." "No, Robert, not now. We'll move this summer. And for now, Alice and I will go to Altai, to my sister's. You'll sort things out. What about school?" Her father didn't give up. "The last quarter doesn't mean anything. I'll arrange everything. We're leaving tomorrow. I think it's a mistake. The past is catching up. We'll see." Her mother cut him off and left, ending the conversation. Alice lay there, trying to make sense of it. One thing was clear. They were hiding something from her. Something so important, perhaps frightening, that they were ready to send her thousands of kilometers away for it. But what exactly? She understood. Direct questions were useless. Her parents would find a way to avoid answering. They were concealing something from her. This caused anxiety, but also burning curiosity. Perhaps the curiosity was even stronger. The next day, her mother announced the trip to Altai. "You look tired. You need a rest," she said, smiling. Her father supported it. Alice agreed, happy for the chance to skip school. But inside, questions gnawed at her. Why so suddenly? Who were they running from? What were they hiding? Her imagination painted all sorts of pictures. All the way on the train, she speculated. Threats from her father's business? Enemies from the past? A suddenly appearing criminal brother? After all, Dad said someone had found them. At first, Alice planned to eavesdrop on her mother's conversations with her aunt, but Altai completely captivated her. Nature, new acquaintances, first love. The trip was so vivid that her anxieties receded, and, as always happened during such busy periods, the girl from her dreams disappeared. Alice knew her schedule. When life was overflowing with events, she temporarily withdrew. But then, she always returned. Alice left Altai with sadness. She had grown so fond of the place, made friends, although her first love had already ended. She and her mother went straight to Moscow, bypassing their hometown. Her father had managed to prepare everything during these months: the transfer, a new apartment, the move. Alice liked Moscow. The new spacious apartment, the view, the proximity to everything interesting. The summer flew by unnoticed, and it was time for school. Alice was nervous about how she would be accepted. On the eve of September 1st, for the first time in a long while, her dream friend appeared. She silently hugged Alice, looking with understanding and quiet support. Alice was glad to see her. She wanted to tell her so much. The girl from the dream, as always, listened without saying a word, but warmth and confidence emanated from her. It was as if she was instilling, "Everything will be okay." And so it turned out. Alice easily fit into the new class. Life returned to its usual course. On a May evening, returning from classes at the medical institute, Alice was one of the best. She was fascinated by medicine, especially cardiology, partly due to her mother's recent heart attack. She loved driving the car her father had given her for her 18th birthday. Traffic jams didn't spoil the pleasure of speed and music, always attentive and careful behind the wheel. But that evening, the impact came from the side. She was crossing an intersection on a green light when an old Lada, driven by a drunk teenager without a license, crashed into her at full speed. Alice was trapped in the mangled car. There was no pain due to shock, but she, as a future doctor, assessed the injuries: a broken femur, but most importantly, a deep wound on her abdomen, severe bleeding. While waiting for help, she saw her white t-shirt soaking with blood. People tried to pull her out. She saw the guilty driver, realizing what had happened, and his passenger lying unconscious. She lost consciousness. She woke up on a stretcher, in a hospital corridor, with pale, frightened parents walking beside her. Everything seemed unreal. There was no pain. And suddenly, she heard the doctor's words. "She needs blood. Parental blood doesn't match. They have type B positive, she has type O negative." Consciousness swam again, but a thought flashed through her mind. How? That's impossible. Genetics don't work like that. Then she found herself at the edge of a forest. Early autumn, her favorite time. Golden leaves, a field full of flowers, clean air. It was a dream, one of those dreams. She would appear soon. And indeed, a slender figure in a light sky-blue sundress emerged from behind the trees, a smile on her face, but anxiety in her eyes. Silently, as always, she approached. They sat down in the grass, leaning against a tree. No words were needed. They felt each other. The girl from the dream soothed her, made her understand that everything would be okay. Alice believed her. She had never deceived her. But the anxiety in her eyes, a hidden sadness. Alice had noticed it before. She felt that something was wrong, and the dreams started coming less often. Alice didn't know how much time passed at the edge of the forest. She admired the unreal sunset, painting the sky in incredible colors. The sight calmed her. Then her friend got up, smiled, and dissolved. She didn't walk away, but simply disappeared in an instant. Alice knew the dream was ending. She opened her eyes. Bright light, pain, nausea, dizziness, an uncomfortable bandage, an IV drip. Breathing was difficult. How she wanted to go back there, to the forest, to her. Several days in intensive care, then transfer to a regular ward. The operation was complicated. She had almost died. But youth and health helped her recover quickly. Doctors promised full recovery. Alice realized how lucky she was. But the thought of the doctor's words didn't leave her in peace. Type O negative with both parents having type B positive. This contradicted genetics. What was the reason? She decided not to ask her parents right away, seeing how worried they were. They visited her every day, brought food. Finally, she was discharged. Life gradually returned to its usual course: studies, friends, entertainment. There were no physical consequences of the accident, but the old car was beyond repair. Her father bought a new one, an SUV this time, for safety, as he said. Alice liked the new car even more. 20th birthday, a celebration with relatives, and then washing dishes with her mother in the kitchen, as was tradition. Light conversation. And suddenly, Alice asked about the day of her birth. She wanted to know everything, preparing for future motherhood, but in reality, she was searching for the truth. Her mother hesitated, said everything happened quickly. Alice understood. They weren't telling her everything. Her gaze, full of expectation, made her mother interrupt. "I can't anymore." She called her father. He entered, immediately becoming serious. "It's time to tell you," her mother said. Her father nodded, suggested they sit down. Alice knew the secret was about to be revealed. She had already guessed, hearing about the blood type. "We adopted you," her mother said. Alice's breath caught. She had suspected, but hearing it was different. Questions flooded out. Who? Where? Siblings. Why did they give you up? Her parents looked bewildered. "We don't know everything," her mother said. "Your biological mother was young, from a poor family. There were no siblings then." Her father caught his wife's eye. "Mom, please, the whole truth," Alice asked. "I'm ready." Her mother admitted. The story was a little different. They bought her from her grandmother's neighbors. The word bought stung. Her father explained. "A poor family. She didn't want to terminate. The grandmother suggested us. They knew we wanted a child, and they had good genes." Her mother added, "They bargained. We gave them money to help them. You were born, and they gave you to us. You weren't in an orphanage." "Where are they now?" Alice's voice trembled. "We don't know," her parents replied. "They left," her mother said. "And then, when you were a teenager, your grandmother, Sarah's mother, came to your father's work. She demanded money, threatened to tell you. We got scared. That's why we moved." Alice understood. This was the very secret she had overheard years ago. "So, my birth family are destitute extortionists?" The thought flashed. "Rather, people in despair," her father gently corrected. Her mother added that the most important thing was who raised her. But Alice couldn't stop thinking. She imagined a young, poor mother, perhaps 4 younger siblings. Her childhood dream of having siblings had become a reality. She decided she would find them. By herself, in secret from her parents, so as not to worry them. She would start with her hometown. Attempts to find traces through archives and her parents' acquaintances yielded no results. She was registered as a foundling. But Alice didn't give up. She would finish university, earn money, and hire detectives. 10 years passed. Alice finished university and became a successful cardiologist. She met David and got married. They were happy. Her parents rejoiced. They weren't in a hurry to have children. Alice was building her career. 3 years later, twins were born. A surprise for everyone. David's parents were surprised, saying there were no twins in their family, so it must be on your side. Alice kept quiet, as she didn't know herself. Motherhood was challenging but joyful. The grandparents helped. Alice's mother adored her granddaughters, but soon she was gone. Her heart. Alice grieved deeply. Her husband, friends, and family supported her. But her father needed her the most. He declined sharply, and Alice focused her energy on him. Now Alice visited her father every day with her daughters. They played, reminisced, she took care of the house. The granddaughters breathed life into their grandfather. Sorting through old photo albums, Alice was surprised she hadn't looked at them before. This was history. She stumbled upon a black and white photo. She recognized her mother, just a girl, about 12. The same eyes, hair, mole. She remembered that photos used to be signed. She turned it over. A neat inscription. Names, place. Alexeyevka, year. Ellie, Mom, Martha. Her grandmother, the very one whose neighbors Alice was born to. Alexeyevka was her small homeland. Perhaps those who knew her biological family lived there. The desire to find her blood family, dormant for years, flared up again. It was scary, but she had to know the truth, whatever it was, at least for her daughter's sake. She shared it with David. He, knowing her history, immediately said, "I'm with you." They decided to go the following weekend. They arranged for the girls to stay with their grandparents. Alice found out the way to Alexeyevka. The night before the trip, she couldn't sleep. Her heart pounded. What did she want more? To find those who sold her, or to find no one? In the morning, they set off. Alice was nervous. David drove. The road went through fields and groves. By lunchtime, they reached Alexeyevka, a small, quiet village. The houses varied, from dilapidated to modern. Alice was at a loss. How to search? "Let's ask," David suggested. They walked along the deserted streets. Silence, dust, chickens, cats, smells of food and herbs. Finally, they saw people on the square by the shop, old people on a bench, women with children. Children were playing. The locals immediately noticed the strangers. Their gazes were curious, open. It was clear visitors were rare here. David approached the women and asked about Martha Stevenson Rogers. Old Marthy. They recognized her immediately. The oldest woman, looking closely at Alice, asked, "So you're her great-granddaughter?" The women started whispering, casting strange glances at Alice. It felt uncomfortable. They gave the address, Flower Street, 19. They said the house had been empty since old Marthy died. They couldn't sell it. Walking further, Alice asked, "Why were they looking like that? Whispering about the resemblance? Who do I look like?" David reassured her, saying it was just curiosity. But Alice heard phrases like, "two peas in a pod." She didn't understand who she could resemble. Here was old Marthy's house, dilapidated, overgrown, with broken windows. Alice didn't want to approach. David took a photo. "But we're not looking for this house, but the one next door, where your birth family lived," he reminded her. "The house opposite, that's it," Alice said, remembering her mother's words. It looked lived in, well-maintained. What to do? Knock? David suggested it, but Alice hesitated. "Let's wait, maybe someone will come out." She was afraid of this meeting. What if her relatives were there? Or conversely, no one who knew anything. They sat by the fence of the old house. The street looked abandoned, poor. Hours dragged on. David dozed off, while Alice watched, replaying frightening scenarios in her head. And then something unexpected happened. The door opposite opened, and a woman in a wheelchair appeared on the porch. She easily descended the ramp. Alice nudged David. They approached the fence. "Hello," David greeted. The woman turned around, and all three of them gasped in astonishment. It was incredible. The woman in the wheelchair was an exact copy of Alice. The same features, hair, eyes. "It can't be," flashed through Alice's mind. It's her! The girl from her dreams, her friend, with whom they grew up. David exclaimed, "You're identical!" "Is that really you?" the woman asked joyfully. She invited them in. Alice, still recovering from the shock, asked, "Who are you?" "I'm Maria, your twin sister," she replied. David joked about clones. Alice added the medical term. Alice asked her to tell everything. Maria understood why her adoptive parents had been silent. She herself had learned the truth from her grandmother Claire before her death. Alice took Maria's hand. The feeling was incredible, like an electric shock. They hugged, feeling an instant closeness. David took pictures, joking about TV series. Maria smiled and began her story. Their grandmother Claire, a single mother with 5 children, lived here. Poverty, hard labor. Her husband had disappeared. The eldest daughter, Sarah, helped at first, but then became a difficult teenager, demanding money, a good life. She found older men, left home. She returned pregnant, abandoned by the child's father. Claire took her in, but they lived in poverty. One day, a neighbor, Martha Stevenson, came to visit and suggested her granddaughter Eleanor and her husband Robert, who were well off, couldn't have children. They were willing to adopt Sarah's baby for money. Claire was horrified, but Sarah, overhearing the conversation, was enthusiastic about the idea. She convinced her mother it would be better for everyone. The child would get a chance at a good life, and they would get money. Claire, with doubts, agreed. A few weeks later, Sarah went into premature labor at home. Surprise, twins. Martha Stevenson was delighted, but the doctor who arrived with Eleanor and Robert examined the babies. One was healthy, Alice. The other, Maria, had serious problems, likely wouldn't walk or talk. A vegetable. Eleanor and Robert refused the sick girl. Mia stayed with Claire. The grandmother thought about giving her to an orphanage. Doctors advised it. But one day, when Claire was singing, Mia looked at her meaningfully and smiled. "I won't give her up," the grandmother decided. The doctors were wrong. The problems weren't as bad as they seemed. Sarah was indifferent and left. Mia grew up, learned to live in a wheelchair, studied well, made friends. She and her grandmother were left alone. Sarah sometimes appeared, changed, drinking. She died tragically in a fire. Claire and Mia endured the grief. Then Claire got sick, cancer. She decided to tell Mia the truth before she died. She lived for her granddaughter until she reached adulthood. "When I learned about my twin sister, I understood everything," Maria said. "Maybe it sounds strange, but since childhood, I dreamed of a friend, my copy. She grew up with me. When Grandma told me, I understood. It was you. Our connection manifested in these dreams." Alice asked, "In the dreams, you walked?" "Yes," Maria replied. "And you?" she asked. "Yes," Alice nodded. "We were connected all these years. It's incredible." "A miracle," Maria agreed. Alice added that perhaps science would explain it someday. Maria admitted she waited for these dreams, but lately they had become less frequent. "But now dreams aren't needed. Come visit," she smiled. David was amazed. Maria told how she had lived alone since she was 18, contrasting with Alice's calm life. She had to cope. Grandmother Claire was very worried about her, and before her death, sought out Alice's adoptive parents. She hoped they would take Mia in, as she was her twin sister, and not as sick as she seemed. But Eleanor and Robert refused even to meet her, and they moved. Alice shared her parents' version about the extortion and threats. Maria didn't believe her grandmother demanded money, but she understood her desperation. Alice regretted that her parents got scared and they lost so many years. "Now we'll make up for it," Maria smiled. "Will you come?" David suggested, "Mia, have you thought about moving to the city?" "Where would I live?" she asked. "We have a place," Alice chimed in. David's grandmother needs care and doesn't accept strangers. But Mia is family, kindred. They offered her a job as a caregiver, with a good salary. The grandmother lives nearby. She's nice. Say yes, Alice urged. Of course, Maria replied. She had nothing to lose in the village. David was happy. Alice hugged her sister. A warm August evening. An unusual group walked down the street. Two identical young women, one in a wheelchair, and two identical little girls in bright dresses. The girls chatted with both moms, holding ice cream. That's why I had twins, Alice chuckled. I'm a twin myself. I look at our girls and think how happy we could have been together, Maria said. I missed you. And I missed you, Alice replied, but now everything is good. And that was the truth.